We call it the Sunday test. And Mike, what does it mean if you wake up on a Sunday excited or exhausted about the week ahead? How does the answer to that Sunday test help focus in on should you be selling in or perhaps selling out?
Hello and welcome to this week's Shoot the Moon podcast, broadcasting live and direct from Revenue Rocket World headquarters in Bloomington, Minnesota. With me today are my partners, Ryan Barnett and Matt Lockhart. Welcome, guys.
Great to be here, Mike. Great to be here with you, Ryan. I'm excited about this. Ryan, what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Each week we cover the things that we really hear on the minds of CEOs of IT services firms. And we've learned a lot over the last 20 years. And what we want to do this time is we're really kicking off a series here entitled the Sell Side Masterclass for Tech Services Founders. And the idea here is we've got a bit of content here focused on the things that you need to consider before selling your firm. And so everything from making a decision of why you should sell your firm all the way to what it's going to look like through the process of finding buyers, and to running through indications of interest or even the when to let go or deal killers. All part of, by the time you're done with this masterclass, you should feel very comfortable in understanding what it means to go through an M&A transaction as an IT services leader here today. So, Mike, Matt, I got a bunch of questions for you today, and the first thing that we're thinking about in this series is oftentimes the biggest question that we've got, which is the decision to sell. How do you really know when it's time? And so we're excited to have this topic today, and really when you start to think about this overall, keep in mind selling it's not quitting. It's moving on to the next chapter in your life, in your firm's life, and the opportunities that come with that. So, Mike, why don't you get this started? Why is it just such a tough call for founders to start to come up with a decision of just selling your business?
Well, it's a big decision. I mean, I think for most of the listeners, their firm is their single largest asset of their personal assets. And to make the decision to sell it or to recapitalize it for an eventual exit, because both are kind of focused on ultimately exiting the firm, whether that's sooner or later, it's a big decision. One of the biggest decisions you'll probably make as you've worked hard to cultivate this business from a small fledgling business into a growing and going concern that has, material value. And so there's a lot of emotions that go on with sellers when it comes time to exit. Certainly there's the dollars and cents associated with that. And then there's also, in some ways, a feeling of kind of abandoning the ship, abandoning the journey that some owners experience. And it doesn't need to be that way. Certainly, I think you can craft your exit in a way that it meets your objectives and your team's objectives. And just know that it's natural for it to be a big decision, and you should think about getting outside counsel to help you make it.
Yeah, I think it's a great place to start. And as CEOs are thinking about this, you've created something that's so critical to what you have become as a person. You're always wondering, is this the time that's right to sell? Is it right for my employees? Is it right for my customers? Is it right for me? You oftentimes just fear of regret of what happens if I don't sell or what if I do sell, or even there's a lot of conflict between having your own boss and having a different boss. And granted, I think your customers, employees, are a boss if you're a owner of a firm, but having just another boss that you may not have ever had before. So I think absolutely, it is a hard decision, and it is a tough call. Matt, I'd love to hear from you. Just are there early signals that people start searching for? And when founders are just quietly thinking about selling, what do they start to look for? And what do they, what drives them to start looking at selling their firm?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's as you guys said, it's a tough decision, and it takes some exploration. And some of the things that we see is when CEOs and founders are looking at, understanding the valuation of their firm. And while we give guidance to do a regular valuation, just as a sort of a mile marker, if you will, for the growth of the firm, oftentimes that's not the case. And so, when you're starting to think, geez, what is my firm worth in the marketplace? When you're starting to think of, is it a good time to sell? Have I, how attractive am I in the marketplace? What is the, what is the state of the market? I think those are, oftentimes some of the first, signs. Oftentimes we will hear from founders also that, our CEOs that, they sort of feel like they're stuck at a barrier, right? Barrier to growth. And they feel like they don't necessarily have all the tips and tricks. And, in other cases, it's just a time thing, right? It's just, hey, I've been doing this for 10, 15, 20, 25, shoot, we've got a client that we've been working with that's been doing it for over 30 years. And they just recognize that there's more to life. And so I think those are some of the common themes that we see.
Yeah, great points. And I think CEOs should really think about that. And if you're wearing a ton of hats today, that's a great signal that if you feel burdened by those ton of hats, it could be an opportunity for you to seek and say, hey, maybe there's an opportunity to do something different and perhaps take some chips off the table and be part of something different or bigger. Which brings me to my second point here. And so if you've started to make the decision and you're starting to think, what does a transaction look like? We brought up the concept of selling out and selling in before. And selling out to us is oftentimes you're moving on from the company and you're going to retire and just move on. So, Mike, just understanding what are some things that would lead a business owner to think, maybe selling out is the right thing that I should be thinking about here?
Well, I think, if you've lost kind of your passion for the business, that's certainly one indicator that maybe you should think about, exiting and selling out. If you find that you spend more time, thinking about other things that you could be more passionate about, or other, businesses or other activities, certainly I think that's an indicator. I think if you struggle with getting past one of the growth ceilings and, you're frustrated and tired and burned out, I think that's the case for some. Certainly that's an idea and a time to consider moving on. Age is a consideration. Certainly, at some point you're going to want to decide to maybe retire and do something else, spend more time with your family or for pursuit of things that you might not have had time to pursue while you were working, obviously more than full time in most cases. And, there's just that, it's time, right? I think you need to listen to yourself and listen to your family about that. And, certainly those are indicators that it might be time for you to exit and sell out.
Yeah, and if you're going through any of these, it's very natural, and there is a great conclusion to sometimes you just come to a point where it's clear that I'd like to move on. We see it daily, and I think there's nothing wrong with the idea of selling out and moving on. There's someone that's going to benefit from your customers and your employees, and there's benefit that you're going to get as well. And I think that's something positive to do. Matt, if I start to think about the other way of selling in, what are the opportunities of joining a bigger platform and to accelerate growth, and why would people choose to sell in compared to sell out?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first, that we help people with is they're looking to sort of accelerate their growth, and oftentimes that goes along with sort of up leveling their responsibility, because they're going to be more quickly, engaged in helping lead and or leading a bigger company if they're a platform company. You know, it oftentimes comes along with that opportunity to get that proverbial second bite at the apple, while at the same time de-risking a bit, because they're selling, most often a majority aspect of their firm. But yeah, I think that more importantly is sort of that former, that they see it as an opportunity to go and go faster and go bigger. And that's really exciting. And, in addition to that, selling in oftentimes, most often, gives you an opportunity to work with a different level of talent. When you're recapitalizing with a growth partner, you get the opportunity to work with some really talented people who've been there before. And, maybe that's a way of getting unstuck if you feel like if you've reached some sort of natural growth barriers. And likewise, if you are an add-on in that scenario, it's oftentimes a great opportunity to work with a better team of really strong professionals, and that can be, super invigorating for founders as well. So yeah, it's really a combination of the opportunity to grow faster, a bit of de-risking, while at the same time, having the opportunity to become part of something that's more valuable, and get that second bite at the apple.
Yeah, get some energy in the tank and you're still looking to stay on. I think this is a great opportunity that you don't necessarily have to sell out and move away. You can really be part of something bigger. And I think this leads to a big decision that people have to make. And I will say, I think you have to make this early in your process. If I'm going to make the choice to sell my business, do I sell in or sell out? And I just wanted to introduce a couple of tests here, guys, on what are some examples that we can give listeners here today that they can start to ask themselves. So, Mike, one of the tests that we think about here is we call it the Sunday test. And Mike, what does it mean if you wake up on a Sunday excited or exhausted about the week ahead? How does the answer to that Sunday test help focus down on should you be selling in or perhaps selling out?
Well, certainly you can anticipate my answer a little bit. If your Sunday night's coming around and you're dreading Monday, because of all the things that are in front of you as it relates to your work, you should probably consider selling out. Especially if that's a repeat sort of Sunday evening for you, right? If it's more about, hey, yeah, we got a big week ahead and you're looking for, to get things done this week and you're excited about that, maybe an indication you want to sell in. I think, one real critical test is sort of how long do you want to keep doing this? This is another test, which is if you're thinking you want to be done in the next year, certainly you're selling out. If you say, yeah, I got a lot of gas in the tank and wouldn't mind sticking around 3, 4, 5 years longer, or who knows how long, in order to get the infamous second bite at the apple, or get a uptick and run up in equity that you roll into the new company, and you want to participate as a shareholder in that new business, then you're all about selling in. And I think, where it gets difficult is if you were to say to yourself, hey, I want to be done in 2 years or a year and a half or 3 years or 4 years, where it might be kind of a tweener. You really have to examine what is your motivation and how you, structure a deal. And, we'll get more into the hows of how to work through this in more detail. But, certainly a lot of it depends on how long you want to continue to work and how you think about that work on Sunday night.
Yeah, great way to get us started there, Mike. And Matt, I'm going to throw another one to you here. Another one, a view of this is can you picture the business 3 years from now? And Matt, how do you help a founder decide whether they believe the company will be meaningfully stronger 3 years from now? Like, how does that understand if the company's going to be stronger or not in that 3 years? How does that frame into a kind of a sell in or sell out decision?
Yeah, I think it's the confidence piece that we oftentimes work with our clients with is how real is that confidence and what is that based upon? Have they really set the foundation of scale in their go-to-market as well as scale in their delivery and operations and the like that enable a consistent, if not accelerated, aspect of growth. And, I think it is really a good test and one that you need to sort of be open and, it's kind of that look in the mirror moment of being able to say, yeah, I mean, the indicators are good. My positioning in the marketplace is good. My team has grown. My customers and their adoption of my service offerings and products and service offerings are really strong. That really gives a confident ability to grow. And if that's not in the case, there's a couple of different paths, right? Obviously, there is the selling in opportunity to grow with other people. And, you can also look to up-level your organization with advisors and the like. But so it doesn't have to be, oh, my God, I've got to sell. But oftentimes that can be a really good time and a really good opportunity to look at growing with somebody else. And that growing with is not just growing revenue, but again, growing all of those organizational capabilities.
Absolutely. Great points. And I'd say the last one to just think about is a test. If you're looking at this is, as a business owner, would you regret the decision? Which decision might you regret? And if you're looking at kind of opportunity, regrets, like, hey, I missed out. I could miss out on something much bigger. And I think selling in it could be the way to go. And if you're thinking that I just want to perhaps get past burnout or past the next thing, it might be time to look at selling out. And then, Mike, I'll just ask this a quick question. I think it's important because every founder typically is going to have people around them. How important is alignment at home when making a decision like this? Like, what kind of clarity you need from your household in trying to make a decision like this?
Well, that's a great question, Ryan. I think it is a family decision, right? Obviously, your family and your spouse and your significant other probably have supported you through the long hours and long days and travel and everything else that's gone into building the business. I think certainly they have a seat at the table and a material say in what you do with the business. And so, being able to be transparent about your thinking about it, when you want to exit, how you want to exit, or if you want to exit. I mean, I guess depending on whether you're selling in or selling out, you are either farther down the road on an exit journey in the case of selling out, or, you have more time to put in before you ultimately exit the business in a sell-in scenario, is something that's worth a, material discussion. And how you think about that and how you plan that, you want to get support from, the folks that are important to you in your life around those decisions, and be a sounding board for you to help you make those. Big life decisions, pretty critical to involve those in your life and those decisions.
I think you nailed it. And Matt, just one more, I got really a question for each of you here, but Matt, are there some low stake things that a founder can start to do to think about this decision today? It seems like you could do all sorts of things from getting a valuation or readiness assessment or just even understanding a quick cleanup of your financials or your contract or your contracts. What other low stake things can a firm do to kind of test their toes here?
Yeah, well, I mean, get a valuation, understand, and does that match your number? Well, one of the key decision criteria is kind of understanding your number and ensuring that it's viable. And towards that end, the valuation, and then when you say readiness check, I mean, this is really important. It is, is your positioning in line? Is your data in good shape? Your financial data and your customer data, and does that all tie together? Yeah, are there things that would be quick hits to understand that you may want to do? That could be removing some cost out of the organization. That could be some marketing, and positioning things to ensure that when people are starting to take a look, they recognize, your positioning and the advanced positioning within the business. So these are relatively low stakes things that, again, you should be getting some outside help doing these things all along your journey, but really in that time that you're in that consideration stage, it absolutely makes sense. And the last thing I'd say is figure out what your team is, your advisor team, understanding, what your eventual legal, your tax, as well as some peer, networking, so that you've just got things to bounce off of a friend and peer in the industry. So, these are all relatively light, not a huge commitment, but it can really then inform that decision and put you in a great place to execute and or to not execute and not put your firm on the market, but understand some of the things that you may want to do prior to making that step.
Great. Matt, you covered the question I was going to ask Mike on is how should an advisor help? And I think you nailed it well. Revenue Rocket, we're here to help as well. And I'll just remind everyone, this is the first of a part of a series here, kind of questions to think about when you're selling your firm, or should I even sell? I think this is foundational, and understanding just when is it ready, I think is something that you should really consider and think about quite a bit. And we're looking forward to the next steps here. So next we'll be covering just getting your business really ready to sell and what that process looks like. And as we talked a little bit about today with readiness, but moving into what that really looks like. So Mike, how can Revenue Rocket help here? And I'll let you leave it to you to wrap up.
Yeah, sounds good, Ryan. Well, I think Matt covered a lot of it. I think you need, it takes a village. It takes a village to help put these deals together, to make the decision to do it, when to do it, how to achieve your number, how to get from here to there, whether that's, next year, or 5 years, or 10 years from now. And I think certainly we've been doing this a long time and happy to share some of our experiences with you. And I think any advisor you would talk to should be in a position to help you not just make the financial decision, but, the life decision. And we're here to do that. So with that, we'll tie a ribbon on it for this week's Shoot the Moon podcast. Encourage you to tune in next time when we unpack the next step or next in our series, Masterclass. Look forward to having you tune in then. Take care and make it a great week.